I think it's problematic to create specific schemes for specific conflicts. And so, for example, actually, if you think about the Afghan schemes that we put in place, they were not actually for, any Afghani to be able to come across. It was specifically for those Afghans who had worked with the British out there. And we didn't create a specific route, despite the fact that for many of the people living now in Afghanistan, the circumstances are horrific. Yes, we did for Ukraine. If we do for Sudan, will we do that for every other country where there's a particular conflict? So I think...
But what's the line then? So why Ukraine? Why pick that one? Is it because what?
I assume it's because... Well, I don't know why the government gave the rationale for it. I assume there's probably several factors, including a invasion of a country, which is obviously not the case in Sudan, a horrendous situation in Sudan, but it's a different type of situation. I imagine it has got something to do with the fact that, as you said, or as I think your viewer pointed out, the war on the doorstep of Europe, I imagine there were considerations of, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I imagine there were several factors that went into that. I think the real point here is we should be a compassionate nation. We, of course, should be taking people who are fleeing abuse, violence, who are terrified for their lives. We should have a system that works rather than thinking each time we have to create new types of schemes. So, of course, there should be safe and legal routes for Sudanese citizens to be able to apply to come to the UK.
Just to give you some context, by the way, I think it was about 160,000 Ukrainians use these schemes. Paul, your thoughts?
I'm sympathetic to the idea. We've got a ceasefire in Sudan, which I think is likely to expire today, and the predictions are that the violence is going to intensify. I mean, the violence so far has been pretty horrendous, and you see pictures of people in those circumstances and refugees fleeing and so on. And it strikes me that this is exactly the type of scenario, really, that the principle of the resettlement schemes was kind of created for in the first place. So I don't necessarily think that it's unreasonable to say that as a Western nation, we should be willing to take a modest number of those refugees. What do
you call a modest number?
Well, I guess that's for others to say. But
no, I'm asking you. You've just said a modest number. I'm asking what you mean.
But these things these figures can't be plucked out of the air. You need to think these things through. But let's say, for example, a few thousand, I think wouldn't be unreasonable. But the thing I think as well is look, Sudan shares a land border with Libya. Now we know that in terms of some of the heavy numbers of migrants that have been coming into Italy and then moving on throughout Europe. They've been originating from Libya, and a number of those people, of course, have ended up coming across the channel in the small boats. So the truth is that if we don't agree to take a number of these refugees, there's a chance that they may end up getting here anyway through the mechanism that we're trying to prevent. Look, I mean, we would need to also make sure there are proper dispersal policies in place if they do arrive. I think we've been terrible at that in the past in terms of dispersal policies, in terms of integration policies. We've effectively had a policy that says, if people come here and their asylum claim is granted, then essentially crack on, get on with it. And you'll live anywhere, and we won't invest in local public services to make sure that the infrastructure can cope. We won't do anything around, employment. We won't do much in terms of integration policies. We've been terrible at that as a country in the past, and that is something I think that would need to happen alongside.